Hey everybody, it's the Ark Knight coming back again. It's been a while, so I thought I'd get back into it with another Minecraft video. Got one focused on castles here for you today. Just wanted to put together kind of a compilation of tips and tricks that I have, as well as some brainstormed ideas I've made for castles, interior decoration, exterior decoration, that sort of thing. So wanted to put this together for you today. Really big fan of castles. Love castles in real life. Love castles in Minecraft. So got a bunch of ideas here for you today, and let's get into it. One thing I really like to do is have kind of a centralized castle keep in the center of a walled off area. So it's kind of like this double layer here, and I've got the main castle keep in the center, and then it's surrounded by sort of a really compact medieval village. There's several buildings within this compound here. And then if you come inside, there's a bunch of neat stuff in here. So this is a kind of a big dining hall here. I worked with a pretty small amount of space for this, but you can definitely expand it. But just kind of all about these little details here. I find that spruce trapdoors make for an excellent decorating technique when it comes to kind of a long dining room table or the backs of some chairs at that table. And then just a bunch of little details here that I think really pull the room together. So like barrels, and I have the tripwire hooks on these to kind of act as spouts for like wine barrels or bourbon barrels. And then I have a bunch of campfires that I filled with meat and then extinguished with a shovel. Then a smoker here that's supposed to kind of resemble a wood stove here. Then a bunch of furnaces and more storage in this corner. Of course, I've got a giant fireplace in the center of the dining hall. Then a area for food storage over here, and then a couple of cauldrons that I've dyed purple. It's supposed to be resembling wine here. Let's move on. Another little neat interior I've got here is just supposed to be a bedroom. And I've kind of done this one as like a four corners has something unique here. And then the towers has something up there as well. So a bedroom. And then I've got a treasury over here. This is supposed to be the war room with a map up there. And then a table full of weapons. Trophy room here. Then if we go to this final corner over here, there's sort of a mix of storage workshop area here. Then in these four towers, I all have a different theme with all of them. So there's the library tower here. Really like the use of spruce trapdoors for a lot of decorations. Basically cabinets, shelves, any sort of thing like that. I feel like spruce trapdoor is one of my go-to decorating items, honestly. Got a brewing tower in this one. Storage, sort of is supposed to be a messy, cluttered storage room. Makes use of a lot of barrels. And this one is a smaller storage slash having a couple of armor stands here. One thing that I definitely want to go over here is the importance of a couple of building techniques that really pull a castle build together. Some more basic techniques that you can use in pretty much every build in Minecraft, but just wanted to run through them real quick here. So right here, we have a stone brick wall, and as you can see, it's pretty bland, pretty boring, not a whole lot going on here. And if you want to have a nice looking castle, you need to have nice looking walls. So we're gonna have to find a couple of ways to improve this further from just being a regular stone brick wall. So let's look at a couple of steps that we can take to make this look a little bit better. So our first step here, and I feel that this makes a huge difference in the looks of castle walls and really any build, but is kind of adding some texture and variety to the blocks that are being used here. So already it's a pretty big difference going from just this regular stone brick wall to a mix of regular stone and stone bricks. It makes it look a little bit more textured, makes it look a little bit more irregular, more interesting to look at. So that's our first step here. Then our next step is we are keeping the texture that we've put in the previous step, but now additionally we are going to add some depth into this wall. So we can do that by extending out one block from the main wall part with a little bit of an arch going over the rest of the wall. And we're going to keep the texture all the way through, and we are just going to add this little bit of depth here. So it makes it look a little bit more three-dimensional, which is good. It's going to make it look more interesting. And from far away, it will look much better than either of these walls here that don't have the depth. So another example of adding depth that we could use as an alternative to this design comes out with a full block's length to add depth here. But what you can do instead is just kind of have the ends of your walls be regular blocks and then put walls in between them. And it kind of adds this little kind of half depth in here that can be kind of interesting to look at. I would recommend doing this only on exterior buildings or exterior walls that aren't going to be connected to anything, because if you start adding stuff on the other side of this wall, these wall pieces are going to kind of jut out because they are attached to a block behind this. So just wanted to point that out. But this is another pretty interesting way to add depth. And then I have texture added in because these are andesite walls here. So after adding in texture and depth, I'd like to add in a little bit more detail here. So this wall still pretty plain, but definitely looks better than its predecessors. So if we come over here, after adding in the 2 layers of the wall, we can go ahead and add sort of like a trim on the top. And I like to do that with stairs, just going all the way across here. And then having a set of upside down stairs or a slab both works for looking like a support under that line of stairs there. And then adding in some stairs for the corners of these little pockets in here. You could add lanterns here to light it up a little bit. And then I've also added stairs at the bottoms of each section as well. And overall, I think it makes for a really nice look, gives it a really nice 3D kind of factor to it. Let's move on. Here's just an alternative way to do detail. You could have some walls jutting out, some wall pieces, some stairs. I have slabs on the inside of here to kind of give it that little halfway look. And then I have stairs overhanging as well. And then I have just alternated slab, no slab, slab, no slab. And I think that this makes for a pretty interesting wall look as well. This is the design that I also like here. So it's got texture, it's got depth, and then it's got stairs jutting out. It's got slabs all the way across the bottom to kind of encase this little area so that there's no grass showing. And then it's got a row of upside down stairs all the way across the top edge. And then on top of those, it is a stair piece followed by a slab, and then stair piece, and then so on. So stair, slab, stair, slab. And I think it makes for a pretty nice little, just having these little stone pieces poking out. And then you could also have like a walkway on the other side of this so that you can look over the side of the wall. Big fan of this design as well. Then our last step is here, after we've added in texture, depth, and some more design work here, is adding in some other type of block to kind of increase the color palette. I like to go for one of the stripped wood blocks typically. I usually go pretty stone heavy with my castle walls, but if you like to add a little bit more color to them, adding in some wood can make for a pretty nice touch here. Lastly here, I do want to throw in this other design. This is meant to be kind of like a rundown wall design that's supposed to just kind of meant to be a older wall that's maybe going around your castle and a surrounding village. Okay, next thing I want to get into is towers, because towers are also going to be a very important part of castle building here. So wanted to kind of go through, similarly to the wall designs, things that we can do to our towers that are going to make them look way better than this basic stone brick tower I have here. I built all these towers pretty short, but it's just for demonstration purposes. So let's get into things we can do to improve these towers. First thing, similar to the walls, we have texture as well. Already this tower is looking slightly better than this basic one here. Next, we have depth and a little bit more detail. So what I've done to add depth here is I've just replaced the corners with wall pieces. I find that I really like this design for just kind of making towers look slightly less square and a little bit more rounded with their corners. So I think it's a pretty good look. And then we have an upside down stair kind of overhang at the top here, and then alternating slabs. And then we have some depth at the top of the tower as well. So overall, this tower is already looking way better than the previous two, just from those minor little tweaks that we've made to this tower design. Going a step further, we've added texture, we've added depth to this tower here. We've got a couple of wall segments with a fence. I find that I really like adding fences maybe halfway up through the tower or 3/4 of the way up through the tower. I find that it just adds that little splash of color that makes the tower a little bit more interesting to look at. And then additionally, at the bottom of the tower, I like to do this and just have staircases kind of extending outwards, like the tower is looking a little bit more braced against the ground here, which I like the look. Then we've got upside down stairs running along the edge of the tower here to kind of create that overhang. And then inside of those, we've got walls, and then these walls are connected to a roof. Now, for a roof material for the castles that I typically like to build, I really like deep slate bricks. I think that these are a pretty nice looking brick. And what I'll do is typically I will build in a kind of a pattern, I guess. I'll go like 3 up, 1 in, 3 up, 1 in, something like that. And then have a couple of blocks up at the very top, and then a couple of these deep slate brick wall segments to kind of come to a sort of semi-fine point up at the top there. I also really like deep slate tiles for another castle roof material. I think that looks pretty good as well. I typically go for deep slate tiles or deep slate bricks. Either one I think looks really nice. Last but not least here, I wanted to show kind of a much larger tower design and a more rounded design as well. So these ones are a little bit more square, as you can see, but then this one, I built it larger and then gave it a little bit more of a curve to it. So it's not quite a perfect circle, but it's close. So I went all around the bottom of that with stairs, except for the corners, which I've added wall pieces to kind of make the curve a little bit less dramatic for these corners here. Something I also like doing is adding in these window slits here. And if you want to know how to do this, you just go to a point where you can knock 2 blocks out. And what you're going to want to do is place 1 staircase at the bottom and then 1 upside down staircase at the top. And it makes this nice little kind of window slit in the tower here. really a fan of that design, especially when it comes to castle windows. Then up at the top, we've got an overhang of stairs curved all the way around, and then it's staircase slab, all the way around the top. Definitely a really big fan of this tower design. It is a little bit stone heavy, so if you want to add some wood pillars on the corners, totally understandable. That would probably look pretty nice, but yeah, overall, pretty nice tower design to use here. Okay, next thing I want to go through, and that I know some people struggle with interior designs, and I definitely struggle as well, but just wanted to kind of throw together this whole line of brainstormed ideas for rooms to put in your castle. I think that these room ideas all go pretty well in a castle build. So if you've got empty rooms in your castle and you want to know what you could fill them with, maybe there's an idea in here that you might want to fill up your castle with. These rooms are all the same size, but I've got a little mini workshop in here. You could definitely expand this, but just got some basic things in here like barrels for storage. Got a shelf made of spruce trapdoors, chests. Got this furnace here and a anvil, of course. And then I've got a little armor stand to kind of show off some netherite armor or whatever armor you're proud of. And I've got a shelf here that is a slab barrel behind it, and then 2 spruce trapdoors. That's the first room. Okay, next room, I've got sort of a study slash library here. So I've got a couple of brewing stands here. I've got the enchanting table, which is the centerpiece of this whole place. And then I've got my bookshelves, my lectern. I've got just kind of an important relic here that's going to be displayed on the wall. A pretty simple table design, just a fence piece, spruce trapdoor. I find that adding in a couple of these little trinket items, like these aren't lit, like some candles, adding in this amethyst gem, and adding in a pot with some flowers and a lantern really kind of spices the place up a little bit. So overall, really a big fan of adding in some sort of study slash library room to your castle towers or something of that nature. Next one I have is just a little bit of a dungeon. So I've got a couple of prisoner cells here, and then I used a lot of cracked stone in here. I felt like it fit the look pretty well. I did cobble and regular stone for the floors, but just having these kind of 3x3 hallways, I think works really well for having a dungeon, and you could make your hallways consistent throughout the entirety of the castle like this, and just have them transition from room to dungeon, things like that. Next, I've got a treasury to hold all of your very valuable goods in here. I've got a couple of things displayed on the walls, a giant mound of gold blocks and emerald blocks, and barrels and chests, all containing all sorts of wonderful treasures. I've got amethyst to kind of be that little cherry on top of these treasure piles here. Next, we're going to have sort of a pantry or granary storage type thing where we are going to store away all of our food for the winter. So we've got a giant pile of grain, of wheat and melons and pumpkins and honey, and all these barrels holding all sorts of food that you could fill them with. So yeah, I really like that idea as well. I've got a torture room here with all sorts of very scary torture devices and things of that nature. And then I find that a fun little touch here is to have this water dripping down from the ceiling, which you could get from just putting a source of water right above your ceiling. Gives it that nice little kind of grimy, dirty feeling in this dungeon, and then having a lot of moss on the ground as well. Now this is a room that's very simple, but I really like it. It's just kind of having a bunch of shelves and potted plants just to kind of be like a nice little green room. Kind of, you know, spice up the monotony of walking through the gray halls of your big imposing castle. Really like these rose saplings here and several other flowers. Next, we've got sort of a soldier's quarters. I really like the way that this came out. I've just got a line of a bunch of kind of uniform beds going across the room, and then adding in some simple things like candles, potted flowers, things of that nature. I've got shelves up top that are storage for the soldiers, a couple of bookshelves, and then a couple of extinguished campfires to kind of be like firewood, fuel for the furnace that's in the back of the room, and having a clock at the back center, I feel makes it look pretty regimented here. And then of course we've got a king's quarters. I made all these rooms the same size. I'd probably make this a little bit larger in an actual build, but just wanted to really put fancy vibes in here. Gold bed, purple carpet, you know, royalty colors, things like that. Got paintings all across the walls, a lantern, potted exotic flowers here. Yeah. Next room I got here is a bathroom. I used polished diorite stairs for the tub here, and then filled them all in with water. I used some smooth quartz for the bathroom counter. Got this little pale oak trapdoor. And then a water basin here to act as a sink. And a neat little thing here I did is to kind of get this mirror effect. And you'd probably want to put a stone wall behind it so it wouldn't reflect anything different from what you should be seeing. But I just mirrored this room exactly on the other side, just but opposite. So nice little touch to kind of make it look like your mirror is functioning correctly here. And then I've got a couple of white banners hung up across the walls to sort of act as towels. But really like the way that this room came together. Next, I've got a nice little kitchen area here. I really like the stripped oak. I don't use this block a whole lot, but I thought it made for a pretty nice little rustic / medieval countertop here. I've got extinguished campfires for firewood, a smoker back here. I've got a cake on the counter. I've got some shelves made up of slabs and spruce trapdoors. Felt like those all came together pretty good. Made sort of a cabinet look here a little bit. But yeah, like this room as well. Got a couple of wood stove creations and got some food on the counter as well. And if you don't like the stripped oak, I've got a couple of options laid out here. If you wanted to go for something more fancy looking, you could do this smooth quartz, or even maybe sandstone would be kind of cool to have as like a countertop. Something like this as well, or polished diorite. Lots of options here, but I kind of like the stripped oak. So let's come over to my castle keep and castle grounds that I got over here for a couple of ideas for exterior decorations. So I've got a nice little cozy village in here. I've got all sorts of different buildings. These are intended to be sort of different districts. This is supposed to be more industrial. And then this is kind of supposed to be like the farming district over here. I've got a stables with horses. I've got market stalls over here. Just a lot of spruce trapdoors that I'm using and fence posts, things like that. So each of these would be a different market stall for a different type of villager that we would fill our castle grounds with. And something that I really like doing is making a statue for your castle grounds. It can be pretty simple. It can be pretty small. I went with something that looks like this. I really appreciate the way it came together. I have it on a stone podium here, but just kind of winged it a little bit, but I really like the way that this came out. Just kind of thickened up the upper torso a little bit and built up the legs, with stairs being the feet, and have him holding some sort of spear looking thing here used with walls and staircases. And then this mouthpiece is just a staircase here. And then I've got 2 buttons for eyes. I think I can't remember what I did for those. One sec. I did polished blackstone for the eye buttons here. And then have him wearing some sort of hat that I made with a bunch of staircases. Really like it. Looks kind of derpy, but a lot of fun to make. Then all throughout this neat little village area, we have these lampposts that are just pretty simple, just walls, spruce fences. I use a lot of spruce, you may have noticed, but spruce fences up to a stone slab, spruce trapdoor, and then a little lantern here to light up the area. And have a double-sided one here. And doing a fountain is also a pretty nice touch too. I put glowstone at the bottom of it, so it looks really nice and lit up. Now around back from the castle, what we have here is a little wooded area. And then I made use of the new pale wood that came with the most recent update. So I've got stripped pale wood logs, and I felt like it made for a really interesting looking artificial tree here. And then I used the rose petal leaves, and I think it just makes for a really nice, tranquil, kind of peaceful garden area back here. Really like doing this design for the tree, and it sort of inspired by the weirwood from Game of Thrones. Big Game of Thrones fan. One thing that I like to do is I like to make sure that my border walls for my castles are things that you can actually use, things that are functional, that you can walk on. So you can walk all along this border wall here, go into the towers, and make sure the entire fortress is secure when you're on guard duty. All right, last but not least, this is an alternative castle design that's going to be a little bit more vertical than the one from over there. It's a nice little castle compound, but this one is really going to be a towering fortress here. And I'm pretty big fan of the way that this came out. It is really stone heavy, so it was starting to look pretty overwhelmingly gray. So I went through and these spruce fence posts added in at some of the corners actually went a really long way to add a little splash of color to this thing here. But I did sort of a rounded tower design just on a much larger scale for this bottom part here. Just extended that up, and then went a couple blocks in, did the same thing again. And then for our third tier of the cake here, we just went with a basic square design, but then added a bunch of little kind of things to it here. So added just some random couple of blocks jutted out here and there, top of the staircases, added what could be an additional room or staircase right there. Added a window with some depth in here, going one block in, and then having some dyed glass there. Having a little tower extend out from one of the corners. Just a bunch of, I went really kind of random with this. I think that honestly, as much as I like to make things symmetrical, I think that they kind of look better when they're just kind of placed at random like this. Just having a couple of blocks extending out here, a couple of blocks there, a tower here, just kind of being random with it. And I think it comes together pretty well. And if we go even further up the top here, we've got a more of a rounded tower with a roof up here, and then we've got windows in that tower using the stair method from earlier. Window in this tower as well, and this tower is just kind of extending outward from the main tower, the center tower here. Got another tower around back here as well, and then this one is kind of more of an interesting kind of extending out with a larger tower, and then an extension of that other mini tower coming off of the main tower. But I did the deep slate bricks for all of the roofs here for each of these towers. Pretty big fan of the way that these turned out as well. And I pretty much did all of the steps that I was talking about earlier with the walls and the towers, adding in texture, adding in depth, adding in some detail, having these stairs extend across the top. I did walls for the kind of more difficult parts to build on there, the corners, but then most of the straight edges here are an staircase going across the bottom, and then alternating stairs across the top. Did the occasional window here, window there. Yeah, I really like the way that this one came out. And if we go all the way to the top here, of course, we've got a flag at the top. It's pretty simple. It's just a couple of pieces of blue wool, really, but it looks okay from far away. All right, guys, that's going to be everything for my castle brainstorming video here. Just thought I would bring this all to you. And if you guys have any castle building tips or designs that you like, yeah, please share them in the comments. I'd love to hear about them. I'd love to implement those in my next castle that I build, because I am constantly building castles and looking for new things to spice them up. So would really appreciate it, and stay tuned for the next one. Thanks.